Retro.
Are you an aspiring Jedi, or do you dabble with the dark side of the Force?
Regardless of whether you fancy yourself a defender of the light or an aspiring Sith Lord, you're going to need a lightsaber.
Podcast Stardust is pleased to partner with Saber Masters, the creators of high-quality, durable, and affordable lightsabers.
Saber Masters is preparing to launch the Ultimate Lightsaber 2.0, and right now you can get 2 for the price of 1.
So, check out the link in our show notes and go get your Ultimate Lightsabers from Saber Masters.
And don't forget to use our referral code Stardust to save $10 at checkout.
And each purchase using our referral code helps support Podcast Stardust.
Hello there. This is James Arnold Taylor, the voice of Obi-Wan Kenobi, and you're listening to Dennis and Jay on Podcast Stardust. Their behavior is continuously unexpected. So uncivilized.
You found it. This is Podcast Stardust, the fully armed and operational podcast dedicated to Star Wars news, reviews, and discussion. I'm Dennis Keithley.
And I'm Jay Krebs.
And our rewatch of the Clone Wars continues with this episode. But before we get back into that, Jay, I want to remind everybody where we can be found around the internet.
Of course, Dennis, we are on Facebook, Instagram, and X conveniently at Podcast Stardust.
All right. The dish is aligned. The signal is boosted to maximum output. The shield is down. We are now broadcasting to the galaxy. So in this episode, we are talking about episode 6 from season 1 of the Clone Wars, which is Downfall of the Droid. Jay, you up to doing the summary, or do you want me to do that?
Absolutely. Yep, I can.
All right.
All right. So Anakin Skywalker sets a trap for General Grievous in the Bothwali system. When the Separatist fleet moves past an asteroid field, Rex and the clones open fire from ATTEs deployed amongst the asteroids. The trap is a success, but Anakin is knocked out while pursuing a fleeing General Grievous, and it's believed R2-D2 is lost in the battle. Fearing that R2 might fall into the hands of the Separatists and reveal sensitive Republic tactical information, Anakin and Ahsoka begin a search for him. However, Anakin's replacement droid, Goldie, sabotages them during multiple incidents. After escaping from Grievous's fleet at the end of the episode, Anakin vows to get R2 back.
All right. So what did you think about this one overall?
I was ready to watch the next one right after this one. And it's funny because I texted you and I said, are we just doing episode 6? Because I kind of wanted to do episode 7 too, because my memory kind of remembers what happened, but not really. So, I mean, it was a lot of fun because it gave me sort of those feels of Anakin as a possessive, I mean, I guess that shouldn't be fun, but just that he's showing those colors of his attachment to Padme through R2, because I mean, come on, we all know.
Observation. Yeah, I hadn't thought of it that way.
We all know that R2 was Padme's droid, and
right.
That was in the, I don't know if it was actually official trivia, but when Anakin and Padme got married, their gifts to one another was Anakin gave Padme his braid and Padme gave Anakin R2. So R2 was a wedding present to Anakin.
And she kind of gave it, and he kind of gave her 3PO too.
Yes, yeah, exactly, in the whole process. But so because when you see his fist clench, and Ahsoka kind of sees that too. I mean, that's definitely more than just tactical information.
Well, yes, and R2 is also a friend, and Anakin is extremely loyal to Ahsoka, Obi-Wan, and everyone. Padme above everybody. That's his biggest attachment. But then, you're in that circle, and you better not wrong anyone in that circle. Otherwise, you're going to pay for it here.
Yes.
All right. Here's the thing. I like this episode. There's a lot of things that I think are really cool about it. This is by far my least favorite of the 6 episodes we've talked about so far. And I think part of that is because there was something about it that was bugging me while I was doing the rewatch. And at the end of it, I was like, you know what? This very much has the Saturday morning cartoon vibe.
Yeah, I can see that.
as much as I loved Saturday morning cartoons as a kid, and it's fun to get that nostalgia hit by going back and seeing some of that stuff, there's some things that just, I don't know, some of the performances, some of the lines in here, it was, very much about wrapping some things up, even though they didn't. They get on to the next episode here. I'm having a hard time explaining this, but maybe I'll do a better job as we get through it here. One of the things that stood out to me, Jay, is that in the first half of this episode, the music Kevin Kiner produced was very different than what we're used to. I don't want to say necessarily very different, but for at the time this came out, it was different than what we were used to for Star Wars. It was when were we talking about this last? About how it was in fact about John Williams that he revived. It was because he was getting the documentary. So it was one of our most recent news episodes that he kind of saved orchestral music,
Mm-hmm.
and when in an era when synth music was being used for movies and things like that. And I'm not saying that this was synthesizers, but it was almost kind of, it's music that they've ended up using like in cantinas a lot, was being played during some of the action scenes. During the first big battle of the episode and then later, but then like midway through, they switched over to the more traditional Star Wars fare. Did you notice that, or what did you think?
No, that's a good catch. I did not notice that at all, honestly. I'll have to go back and like watch it again.
Yeah, I think the reason I did notice it is because I watched this episode on my phone with my AirPods
Ah,
in, and
mhm.
so the music was right there in my ears.
Yeah.
But anyways, that was something that stood out to me. So Kiner's got range, no doubt about it. But it
Yeah,
just
for
seemed
sure.
a little different there. What did you think about this trap that Anakin set for Grievous?
Oh, I thought it was brilliant. I mean,
Hmm.
come on, putting the ATTEs on an asteroid. I mean, that
Hmm.
is really out there in terms of, how you're going to catch your prey.
Hmm.
And that's definitely something that's right up Anakin's alley. And then him going through the asteroids, I was waiting for him to say, "Now this is pod racing," kind of a thing, but he didn't.
Sure. No, I love that part of the episode. I thought that was extremely clever and fantastic. It still strikes me as a little odd that the clone armor is like vacuum rated, that they can survive in space in that, because
Yeah,
there's no like external oxygen tanks or
right.
anything on this armor. But again, we saw it in the Shadow of Malevolence episode,
Mhm.
which is like
Mhm.
episode 2. And now here again, the clones don't have any difficulties at all being exposed to the vacuum of space in that armor. So,
Right, right.
and I would not have guessed that prior to seeing the Clone Wars.
It's very convenient for them, indeed.
Yeah. And to your point about the how cool it is with the ATTEs there on the asteroids, that's not the last time we'll see Anakin cleverly use them. Uh,
Mhm.
at one, I can't remember which one of the episodes it is, or when it shows up, but he uses them kind of like as a drop ship to get from the Republic cruiser to a
Right.
Separatist cruiser at some point. So
Yeah, I
he's
remember that.
yeah. At one point, Ahsoka refers to Rex as a Rexter, and I cannot think of another instance of her doing that. And I didn't remember it at all until I watched this episode. But how did that strike you?
No, I was the same way. I was like, "Did she just say what I think she just said?" And I don't ever remember her saying that again. I mean, she was constantly coming up with nicknames,
Hmm.
R2E, Sky Guy, Goldie, in this one. But yeah, that one completely went over my head the first time. And yeah, it stood out to me too. But apparently it's something that just didn't stick because I don't remember hearing it again.
Well, and all the nicknames she gave anybody, that was the best one.
Rexter, yeah.
It's better than Sky Guy and R2E, in my
Yeah,
opinion.
it is.
So anyway, that I was like, wait a minute, when did she ever call him? When did this start? I think it's right
Yeah.
there. In fact, when I looked at the episode guide, I think that was the first. They made this the first mention of that. So
Oh, okay.
yeah, but Anakin and Grievous, we were just talking the last time we did a episode of the Clone Wars, because Obi-Wan faced off against Grievous there, and that Anakin and General Grievous never engaged in a lightsaber battle or melee combat of any type, but they do have a starfighter fight here. It's more of a chase on Anakin's
Mhm.
part, and so he still has no idea how Grievous really is. Big Grievous is there. Um, But again, Grievous is fleeing and running away.
Yep.
And when I saw this, Mace Windu's line that, Grievous is a coward. He'll run like exactly how that goes,
Like
from
he
Revenge of the
always
Sith.
does. Yep.
Yeah. And here it is. And they are really building that up in these first few episodes of the Clone Wars.
Yeah, they really are. And, I guess I didn't really put that together until you mentioned that line, but it's so true. And I thought the same thing. I was like, oh, there he goes again,
Mm-hmm.
running away. And he knocked off another droid's head in this one, too.
Yeah. Okay. I'm glad you brought that up because the episode guide points out that this was the second episode of the Clone Wars ever produced. And here we are getting in episode 6. I think the events of this episode are supposed to take place prior to the Malevolence trilogy.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Interesting.
the first episode that was produced got incorporated into the Clone Wars movie. So this was the earliest one produced that made it into the series there. So, he gets admonished by Dooku in Shadow of Malevolence, the battle droids aren't cheap. And here he is trashing one because he's frustrated again.
Yeah. Well,
So
I guess it kind of makes more sense that this one would happen, beforehand because he wasn't being, reprimanded for it just yet. Although I
right.
don't think that would have stopped him, quite honestly.
Yeah, if Dooku's not around, who's going to tell on him? Who's that brave?
Right.
Okay, so Anakin ship gets knocked out by that piece of shrapnel, and he gets knocked unconscious. He wakes up and finds out that R2D2 is missing. And then there's this conversation with Obi-Wan, and Obi-Wan is like, "Oh, that's too bad, but our 2 units are a dime a dozen." Which, okay, one, a dime a dozen. So apparently they have dimes in Star Wars.
Huh.
And 2, were you at all surprised that Obi-Wan was this casual about the loss of R2D2?
I was actually, because he knows just as well as Anakin how much R2 has been an asset to them along the
Mm-hmm.
way. And, he was there from the very beginning. I mean, in The Phantom Menace, when he saved the ship, and then he was with them when they went on their adventures, and he was there in Attack of the Clones and, in the whole 9 yards. Um, yeah, it was kind of surprising. I was like, Obi-Wan? Really? Come on, dude. And you know how much this means to him, even though, come on, attachments aside. Let's be real here. He's a cool droid.
Yeah, I agree with you because, yeah, attachments aside, that's a good way of putting it. But this is a hero of the Republic.
Right.
R2D2 is. And I mean, I don't know. It seemed a little odd to me that Obi-Wan would not know that R2 hasn't had his memory erased because he's always with Anakin. And, that's his paddle. I mean, how would they not know this? I guess what I'm
Yeah,
trying to say
exactly.
when it comes down to it. And, and especially compared to when Obi-Wan sees R2 in A New Hope. Hello there.
Yeah.
And oh, don't worry about him. He'll be all right. Just chatting away amiably with this droid. And, for something that's supposed to be a dime a dozen, it kind of reminded me of the way Obi-Wan came off in the Phantom Menace novelization.
Mm-hmm.
Especially with, these pathetic life forms. Obviously, R2 is not a life form. He's a droid, but still just kind of there was a callousness to Obi-Wan there that I felt like kind of surfaced here. And I felt like it was incongruent with the way that Obi-Wan was portrayed in the Malevolent story arc, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, no, and I totally agree with you. And I don't know if it was more, I hate to say for show,
Mhm.
but I mean, he was in the conference room or the battle room, strategy room or whatever, and he was speaking to him there. But maybe Obi-Wan was under a lot of stress too. Who knows?
Yeah, but he was livid when he found out that Anakin had not been erasing R2's memory and that R2 still had all those Republic tactical plans in his memory
Right.
banks there.
Yeah, and
So
it was Ahsoka that came to his defense, really, and he said, "Well, but he has helped us out of some really, tough spots, so it has come in handy."
yeah, she was everyone's sister in this episode,
Yeah,
sticking up for everyone
it's
when it
true.
came down to it. All right, so we got the introduction of Goldie, also known as R3S6, which is supposed to be Anakin's replacement astromech after R2D2 is lost. And of course, Goldie goes on to be a saboteur, some sort of a spy for Grievous, and all this. What did you think about Goldie?
Well, I thought it was cute the way that Ahsoka introduced him to Anakin. He's like, "Look, he's gold for gold leader of gold squadron." She's
Mm-hmm.
just like a kid that, finding kind of the fun, points of all of that. But he was a bumbling fool. So, it from the get-go, you kind of think, okay, there is something wrong with this droid because he's supposed to be the model up from, the R2s. He's an R3. So he's
Mm-hmm.
supposed to be new and improved, and he should be able to do all of these things and more in the blink of an eye. So what is going on with this droid? And so you can't help but to think that, there's got to be some sort of nefarious reason why he's not able to function the way he's supposed to.
Yeah, and here's the thing. I don't know if this was by design or not, or like, were we supposed to realize, were we supposed to think that Goldie was incompetent or that he was a spy in this episode? Because in the next episode, it becomes, jumping ahead, it becomes blatantly obvious. If you
Mhm.
didn't already know, they just come out and tell you there. I guess that was kind of the thing. One of the things that kind of bugged me about this episode was that, and we'll talk about, the Trandoschan scavenger ship here in just a second, but, they get aboard that and he's supposed to open a hatch and he turns on the lights. And then he turns on the assassin droids. And when they get back to Anakin's ship, there's no thought about checking his programming. And this comes right after Obi-Wan was reprimanding Anakin about R2D2 and his memory banks and things like that. Well, I
Right.
mean, shouldn't this be top of mind that you have to like keep an eye on your droids there? And then of course he goes on to do a bunch of other stuff later in this episode, and the audience comes off way smarter than any of the characters in this episode. And
Yes, it's
that
true.
bugged me because it's just like it should be. I mean, I realize we're in the thick of the action, stuff like that, but it's it was just so blatantly obvious. But it was like going right over his head. And Ahsoka sticking up for Goldie. It's like, oh, now you hurt his feelings. Well, his feelings deserve to be hurt. I'm on Anakin's side on this. The droid was either grossly incompetent or intentionally trying to get them killed.
I remember thinking the first time watching this is that maybe he's just really nervous. He's got a lot to live up to here. And I was trying to give Goldie the benefit of the doubt. I remember thinking that. And then, as we come to find out later, that's not the case. But I was a little bit more naive in my assessment of Goldie the first time around.
You've just got a good heart, Jay. You're willing to give everyone the
Oh,
benefit of the doubt there.
thanks. I try.
So they go to look for R2D2 at the site of this battle, and they take the Twilight. And when they get there, they find Anakin's ship, which is right. Here's another thing: they pulled Anakin out of the ship, but R2D2 wasn't there.
Yeah,
So
he
did
must not
the
have been. Yeah,
did the Trandoshan scavenger get there first, or what happened
he
in that
must
regard?
have.
Yeah, and then the Trandoshan scavenger is still there in his ship. And okay, I can forgive that one, but one, why didn't they just take Anakin's ship
Mhm.
while they
Yeah,
were at
just
it?
left it there. Mhm.
Yeah, and so they board the Trandoshan ship, and the character's name is Ganacht, and he's a scavenger. And I have to admit, the first time I saw this episode, I didn't even realize he was a Trandoshan if they hadn't told us he was a Trandoshan. Because,
Right?
and there's an entire featurette about this on StarWars.com where Dave Filoni is talking about how the only other Trandoshan we've seen is Bosk in The Empire Strikes Back, and he's this tall reptilian alien, and he's thin and menacing looking. But Dave wanted to start giving us variety on these various Star Wars alien species. So instead of making someone tall, menacing, and dangerous looking, they created Ganacht is the scavenger, and he's short, stout, he smells bad,
Yeah.
he's doesn't come off as extremely intelligent or anything like that. But the idea being is that, they didn't want to stereotype all the different alien species and stars. Okay, so that's cool. You have any opinions on Ganacht?
Not really. I mean, he was kind of the comic relief, obviously, of this whole thing, and just sort of your stereotypical junk dealer, kind of like Watto, sort of a thing, but obviously working for someone else.
Yes, because he contacts Grievous later to let him know that he in fact has R2D2 and that he's going to bring him to the rendezvous point. and he's trying to renegotiate the deal, which again, not too smart
No.
to do there. So I already made reference to this, but while they're looking for R2D2 on Ganak's ship, the assassin droids, these IG assassin droids get activated. These suckers move way different than IG-11 ended up moving, like in the Mandalorian. They're leaping all over the place. They've got quite a bit of acrobatic type stuff going on them. I mean, I guess different series, which is a way to explain this, but what do you think about these guys?
Right? Oh, I know. I was thinking, okay, am I watching like Sonny from iRobot here? Where's Will Smith? But that's exactly how they were. They were like little ants. And I thought, oh my goodness, this is very different from, just the kind of stalking, walking kind of thing that we get from the other IGs that we've come to know and love.
Yeah, and of course the OG IG IG-88 from
Nice.
also I came off that one on top of my head. I'm going to give myself credit.
That is awesome.
Yeah, and we saw IG-88 in The Empire Strikes Back. Again, another one of the bounty hunters that was there. And he didn't do anything but stand there and maybe move his head a little bit. And then I believe there was a broken one in the background in Return of the Jedi. Or no, The Empire Strikes Back. And so when we finally get to see them here, I would not have anticipated these guys could move like that because they're very spindly, tall, and gangly looking.
Right.
But Goldie activates it. Okay, the thing is like Obi-Wan, Anakin hears an R2 unit chirp off, and he believes it to be R2D2. And he goes to go get that door open, and then they fight the IG droids, and then he never follows up on that.
Yeah, he never does. And I mean, you would think that he would know, which I'm sure he does, know R2's beeps and blips better than anybody. I mean, I don't care if it's an R2 unit, your car's sounds. You know what I mean? Like you can drive the same model car as somebody else, but your car makes the different noises than everyone else's. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I don't know, it just seemed really odd that he would not, come after Ganacht about that. What was that
Yeah,
R2 unit that I heard? He just drops it after they have the fight.
right.
Oh, speaking of nicknames, what do you think about when Anakin called Ahsoka Pookums when
Oh
they
my
first
gosh.
boarded the scavenger ship, and that was their cover about why they were looking for an R2 unit?
Oh my gosh, I wanted to die. And she looks at him, she's like, "Really? Like, for
Pookums.
real? Hookums? What the what?"
I mean,
Uh,
he's already given her the nickname Snips from
mhm.
from the movie there, but Pookums, that just that was a groaner for sure. But I laughed when I
It
heard that.
was.
I'd forgotten completely about that until I did the rewatch on this episode. And then, of course, the episode ends with Anakin and Goldie taking his ship, and they get a hyperdrive ring, and they're going on patrol, and then they get ambushed by the Grievous's ships again because Goldie activated the Jedi Tractor, which is what Grievous was looking for, and then he jettisoned the hyperspace ring, and then later he turns off the engines. It's just,
Yeah.
one failure on top of another. And it takes Ahsoka and Rex and some other clones on the Twilight to come in and rescue him and get out of there. And again, I mean, I understand Anakin's frustration. I'm completely with him. It's like R2 wouldn't have done all this. He would not have been this
No,
incompetent.
exactly. And you would have thought that the first thing that he would have wanted to do when they got back was to check him out, to try to figure
Mhm.
out what is going on. Does he have like a chip fried in there or something?
Yeah. Yeah. And so anyways, uh, I liked the beginning battle. I liked the fight with the IG droids. It was cool to see the Twilight again. That maneuver Ahsoka makes where she goes between the two, I guess they're wings of the two separatist cruisers, and they ended up like hitting each other
Oh
as
yeah, that was
she makes the
cool.
escape. All those things are great, but there's some logic issues with this episode that hold it back for me.
Mhm.
And especially when it comes to Goldie, it's like again. I made this point, so I apologize for repeating myself, but he was so clearly incompetent or deliberately trying to get them killed. Whichever one it is, that needed to be checked out, and no
Yes.
one thought to do it. And they take him with them on their very next mission to go find this listening post that they know is out there.
Mm-hmm. Well, I
And
think you put it very well. It's very Saturday morning cartoon
mhm,
oriented, this particular episode. I mean, that was a good way to put it.
yeah, and it's just disappointing because I feel like the previous 5 episodes are all much more intelligent than this.
That's a good point too. They
And
are.
so and so I don't feel like it's in keeping with what the tone of the show was at all.
Mm-hmm.
So, I guess the only other thing that I want to make mention of, and I sat up straight when I saw this, the planet that they're at the beginning of this episode is Bothwy, which is the homeworld of the Bothans. And
Oh, okay. I didn't put that together either.
yeah, and of course, that was a very famous legend species, and of course we've
Yeah.
heard of the Bothans from Return of the Jedi, and many Bothans died to bring us
This
this.
information.
Yeah, and so we're familiar with their sacrifice, but we haven't seen them ever in canon up till this, at this point. So it's just it was just a kind of a cool reference. I mean, I looked on Wikipedia, and this is the only time that we see Bothwy other than in flashback type sequences. It gets mentioned a bunch of times, but they never like get to the surface of Bothwy ever. So I don't know, but I still thought it was a nice little legends
Yeah,
throwback.
that's definitely a fun little tidbit.
Hmm. Anything else about this episode you want to discuss before we wrap it up?
Oh gosh, I don't think so. I think we did a pretty good job.
Yeah. Again, I like it. I think if the other, the previous 5 episodes are all in that, some flavor of an A or B plus or whatever, this one's probably closer to a B minus for me for the reasons I've stated. But, I'm not really keeping track of grades on this rewatch here. But yeah.
Just fun to
So
do.
yeah. Oh, definitely. I mean, I'm having a good time watching this again. I mean, as you said, I was ready to watch the next one, if for no other reason, to see Goldie get his comeuppance from
Yes.
R2D2. Spoiler if you haven't seen it, I'm sorry. But again, this has been out since
Uh,
2008. So yeah. All right,
Good stuff.
then. Well, that'll wrap up this episode of our rewatch of the Clone Wars here on episode 782 of Podcast Stardust. So thank you all for joining us for that. So we'll be getting back to our rewatch of the Clone Wars here in a few weeks. We're going to take a week off so that we can discuss Lego Rebuild the Galaxy, whatever that special is called. That's coming out. That came out this past weekend. So join us for that. And but again, if you want to catch all of our other episodes, whether it's our news episodes, our discussions, our reviews, make sure you hit the subscribe button, and you'll get all of that downloaded automatically to your podcatcher of choice. And if you're looking for our entire catalog of shows, the best place to do that is over at retrozap.com. They are presented in order if you want to do that. They are most podcatchers only keep the last 1 to 200 episodes or so. YouTube has got them all, but it doesn't always display them all in order for whatever reason.
Oh, that's
Uh,
bizarre.
yeah, I don't know why. But while you're at retrozap.com, make sure you check out all the other content there. Jay Shepard is getting ready to do his 31 Days of Horror for Halloween. So that's going to be coming up soon. And he's also got his Sci-Fi Saturdays articles, which are really cool. And then, of course, there's all the other shows in the rest of that podcast network, including Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Case Files, shows like Dork Lair, Love, Death, and Robots Plus, and Superhero Suite. So those are just some of the other shows that you can find there. And of course, we are looking for your ratings and reviews on your podcatcher of choice. So please leave those for us. The 5 stars are always, favored, but not required. But if you leave us a nice 5-star review, let us know about it. And I'll try and read that on the air. And of course, we like your feedback and when you share the show on social media. So with that in mind, Jay, why don't you go ahead and remind everybody one more time what our social media contacts are and where else we can be found around the internet.
You got it. We are on Instagram, Facebook, and X at Podcast Stardust, and those are some really great ways to connect with us. And we do appreciate you sharing that out as well. And we also have some Pinterest boards over on that app. So if you're looking for some fun ideas, Star Wars wise, you can head over there. And then, as Dennis was just talking about, we do have our 2 YouTube outlets, which are the traditional YouTube as well as YouTube Music. So you can head over to both of those, like, subscribe, and share those out. And if you're up for some real-time chatter, we do maintain a Discord room over on the RetroZap Discord server. So you can hit up the link in our show notes for that. And while you're there, you can check out the one of lots of different geekery kinds of rooms. All the RetroZap shows do have their own room. And you can also hit us up on our TeePublic store if you are in need of some new swag. So we have 7 different show logo designs available on all kinds of goods, from t-shirts, sweatshirts, coffee mugs, even wall hangings, tote bags, and the like. So you can head to tpublic.com or once again, hit up the link in our show notes. And we are still working with Saber Masters. So you can go to sabermasters.com where you can choose from a wide variety of battle ready sabers. And they do have their Ultimate Lightsaber 2.0 for a two-for-one deal right now. So if you check that out and you decide to pick something up, make sure you put in the code Stardust at checkout, and that will get you an extra $10 off. And it will also help to support Podcast Stardust, which we definitely appreciate.
All right, Jay. I know you're going to be busy here with cosplay, so why don't you give everyone an update on the latest there?
Oh, sure. Would love to. So this coming weekend, I will be in Cleveland at the IX Center for the Cleveland Gaming Classic. From September 20th through the 22nd. So I'm really excited about that. I'm also participating in a game show on Sunday. It's kind of a what not to do with cosplay. So it's going to be a lot of fun. It's like a little trivia game kind of a thing. So you can check out all of my upcoming appearances as well as all the fun that I have going on as Ahsoka, Hera, the Fourth Sister, my original concept Mandalorian, and more at J.Snips Cosplay.
All right, upcoming on the show this Wednesday, Jay has rounded up the latest from the world of Star Wars lifestyle and fashion products, and will give those to us in the segment we like to call World Between Worlds. And then on Friday, we get back into our weekly look at Star Wars news. So thanks for listening to episode 782 of Podcast Stardust. Have a great week. Until next time, may the Force be with you.